Hello, hello, friends. I hope you're all well. It's wonderful to be back with all of you for the Africam show. And we get a start off here at Old Donyo where things have been really, really busy. I saw some zebra earlier, and these elephants have really taken over the waterhole. It's a hot spot at the moment, or I should say, a cool spot, especially for these great big elephants. Now, I wonder if they're going to play around as well. It's a nice bachelor herd, a nice big bachelor herd. And remember that we're live and interactive, so send through those questions and those comments. I'd love to hear from all of you. I'm coming to you from quite a wet, rainy, and windy and cold Cape Town. So this little window into the African wilderness is just fantastic for me. And I hope that it is for all of you too. Now, if you're new to the Africam shows, maybe you've been perusing all of the cameras around the continent, spending time watching the wonderful wildlife and just immersing yourself, well, the next 45 minutes are for you to ask any of those burning questions that you may have. And remember, there's no silly questions. I'm happy to ask anything, to answer anything that you ask. Oh, we have so many hellos coming through. I really do miss the Africam community when I'm not around. And I don't ever realize how much I miss all of you and our wonderful cameras until all your hellos come through. First up, we've got Zygote that says, hello, Trishana, namaste, namaste. You've got two Kesar mangoes. Ooh, very nice. Very, very nice. Jack de Boer, you say, this is going to be great. I suspect so too. All this illy action. Oh, everyone stopped listening to each other. Now, the way that this Oldonyo camera is placed, it's close to a hide. So I wonder if that's what we're hearing in the distance. Some human voices. Doesn't seem to bother these big boys, though. Jean Gale, you say good morning, afternoon. Back on good internet. Looking forward to today. Bridget McKenney, you say hi, Trishala. Hi, Bridget. And hi, Kauru. Kauru, you have milk today? Of course. Rolling Trouble, you say hi all from Washington with your water and coffee. Very nice. I needed to warm up, so I had a very nice cup of tea. A traditional old cup of tea, nothing fancy. Oh, there we go. Some zebras want to get into the waterhole, but these boys have really taken up all the space that's possible. Stephen Boyd to say hello from the UK. Hello and thank you for joining us. And Jan Powers is here. Jan says, hi everyone from a very hot Arizona. Water and more water on hand. Nice. Of course I've got some water too. What a standoff and some giraffes in the background. This waterhole really has been pumping, literally and figuratively. There is a little pipe that feeds this waterhole. Now, I'm unsure about how many other permanent water sources there are in this area. But the fact that fresh water gets fed to this waterhole means that it's going to be particularly appealing to elephants. As we've learned, elephants really do seek out the best quality water that they can. Zebras, not so much, but that's why I say I don't know where other permanent water sources are in relation to the one here at Old Donyo. But unfortunately, they're going to have to they're going to have to compete with the elephants. Glenda Newman Craft, you say hello from Indiana. Hello, Glenda. Rolling Trouble, yay, I am back. It's nice to be with all of you. And then we've got hello, Latina coming in from North Carolina, where it's hot and muggy at 85 degrees. That sounds perfect for me. 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 degrees Fahrenheit, even 90 degrees Fahrenheit is pretty good with me. Amber Co, you say happy Tuesday, all coffee and smiles to start your day. And thanks to all the people who get you this show. Thank you for joining us. Now, neither of these animals are a threat to each other, but I mean, it's the largest land animal that the zebras are trying to penetrate, essentially. And that's daunting no matter what. The elephants are definitely communicating with each other. They're very still. I mean, okay, right now they're extra still, but I'm sure we'll get the old Donyo cam back in a moment. I can still hear it every now and then. There we go. Now, them being extra still usually means that they're chatting to each other at those really low frequencies. And I read something really interesting. So I did a little bit of, well, you know me, I go down a black hole of information every now and then. And the most recent one has been elephant communication. Now, we touched on it just before I had a little break and went to the bush for a month. We were chatting about the different ways in which they communicate in terms of touch, visually, and then also audibly, at least for them. But some new research has also come out that talks about the fact that many elephants respond to something that is kind of like a name. Now, I don't mean respond to humans calling them by a name, but within their herds and within their home ranges, they can be identified by specific calls, something pretty much like a name. And so watching those bulls made me think, I wonder if they're using those particular calls. Just a quick look around the timber there, and we're back at the elephant at Ogonyo. I wonder, are they calling each other? Are they speaking to each other using those particular frequencies that are essentially like a name? And that the researchers have even found that elephants will respond to a specific call. There's something else interesting going on here. There's one zebra that's particularly nervous. It's the one that's closest to us, whose side body is facing us. Now just watch that zebra's ears. They're moving around like everyone else's. Everyone is pretty, but look at that, it's pulled down. It's nervous. And why wouldn't they be? It also looks like the zebra that's most keen to get to the water. And while elephants would not be, like I said, neither of these animals are a threat to one another, but the mere fact that elephants are so massive, and this is a bachelor group, so they're males and they're even more massive, they've got significant tusks. And they could very easily hurt and or kill a zebra if they just had to push it. See, that same one is getting a bit of a, well, it's not a talking to, well, a talking to in a way. They're gonna go for it. The other herd members, gave it a little bit of a scolding. I think this is the safest option. Go around the back. I have seen elephants kick their back legs, though. But they can't do it with much force. It's more like a push. The eland are lining up in the back there, too. Dear NC, you say good morning from Seattle and welcome back. Thank you very much. And you're ready with your coffee. Laura NC, you say welcome home. Thank you so much. Mindy Tillapau, you say you have African heat here in the US this week, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh, that is very, very warm. I might take it though, compared to what I'm experiencing now in the Western Cape. Dean Gale, you say, oh, the main thing you are hoping for discussion here about that study, very intriguing. It is really, really interesting. And the way that scientists figure this out, and it kind of goes hand in hand in how we figure out how animals communicate with sound. If we go back to the study that we were talking about previously, the one about different ways in which they communicate, yeah, all these zebras are getting very nervous. The elephants are starting to move around. The zebras are not sure what to do. The elephants, of course, feel, or at least look, like they're very relaxed. And there are very few things that can perturb big elephant bulls. That doesn't mean they don't get interested in other animals, though. And sometimes interest is enough to really, really intimidate you. So going back to the study that was talking about the way in which they communicate visually, tactily, or audibly, one of the really interesting things about that study was the potential for there to be syntax in elephant language. Syntax is the way that we rearrange words in a sentence to create different meaning. So once you identify that there are certain sounds that hold meaning, the next step would be how can you rearrange those sounds to create different meaning? So there was a study that was done with Japanese great tits, I think, that proved syntax in those birds, or at least gave a really, really good probability that it exists. And they did that by recording different calls, call A, B, and C. And if call A, B, and C was played in the same order, in that ABC order, it would elicit a certain response. If it was played ACB, you might get no response. If it was played CBA, you might get a response that makes them want to bunch together, an anti-predator or anti-threat response. So when studies are done on how animals communicate with sound, that's what usually happens. The sounds that they make are recorded and then played back in certain directions, at certain frequencies, and all of those kinds of things to kind of test. So with this naming study, it was a similar thing. And I think this is a great example of how one study builds on another study and builds on another study and builds on another study. And that's why I think that us as people who learn, or if you're a scientist or you work in the field of wildlife, even if you're a guide, the things that we know are the result of hundreds of years of observation and curiosity. And that makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like there's a lineage of humans that are interested in the world around them. So with this naming study, just like with other elephant communication studies, if there was one done for forest elephants as well, trying to figure out what calls are used to cause changes in the herd behavior, such as bunching, which would be a threat response, or even must calls, because elephant bulls give out very, very, very low frequency must calls that can be heard over long distances, and how that would affect herd behavior. So with the name study, same thing, those calls would have been recorded. And then certain calls would have been identified as getting from particular individuals and played back. Those calls again would get a response from certain individuals, and that's what led to the feeling or the understanding or the hypothesis that elephants might actually have so-called names, particular calls that they specific individuals respond to. And I think it makes sense. Because lots of things happen even though the herd is together, whether it is a bachelor herd, whether it is a herd. A lot of things still happen on an individual level. Maybe there's only one individual that's irritating. Maybe there's only one individual that needs to be scolded. Maybe there's only one individual that is straying from the herd, like a youngster. And while a general call to say, come together, might pull that youngster back to the herd, the fact that there are, or we think that there are specific names associated with individuals in an elephant herd, it kind of speaks to even a greater intelligence in terms of communication than we once thought. And we always knew that elephants are very intelligent. In fact, I think that it's the Asian elephant that has the largest section in their brain for cognitive processing of any animal on the planet. So we always knew that elephants were intelligent, but just because we know and feel it doesn't mean it can be proved. And the more we do research, it can become something that helps us to conserve elephant populations. It can help us to understand dynamics better. It really helps us to understand how we move animals. There are some areas in South Africa where elephants are overpopulated, certain reserves, particularly reserves where it's closed, so it's not an open system. So for example, the Greater Kruger area, which includes a number of private reserves, like the Sabi Sand, the Timbavati, a number of those reserves, plus the Kruger, and then up into a Transfrontier Park that extends even beyond our borders in South Africa. That's a fairly open system. That means that animals can come and go over a really huge distance. But the problem is that you get smaller reserves that are not connected to others. For example, the Pilanesberg, where there are they're not open. I know they were thinking of creating a corridor, or that the whole idea of having a corridor between them and Madikwe Game Reserve has been going on for a long time, but nothing's really happened. So what ends up happening is you get an overpopulation of elephants. Now, when we talk about an overpopulation of elephants, it has to do with the carrying capacity of a piece of land. And unfortunately, elephants are big animals. Well, not unfortunately, it's just a fact. Elephants are big animals. And so when they move through a landscape, the landscape can only take so much of pressure from elephants before the landscape itself starts to change. Now, that's not a bad thing. Things on the planet are always changing. Animals on the planet are always changing the environment just by living. But usually, elephants wouldn't be bound by fences, even if it is a large reserve. And elephants don't have territory, so there are always home ranges that they can move through. So, in smaller reserves, where there's an overpopulation of elephants, and that means that it takes resources, or elephants take resources away from other animals that live on the reserve simply by existing, the next option would be to move those animals because there are lots of reserves that don't have a lot of elephants. A lot of reserves that would benefit from more elephants being in their wild spaces. So if we learn more about elephant communication, their names, their bonds, we can better assess how we move individuals and who we move, which I think is a really, really important thing when it comes to animals that so clearly form bonds and even to the point where they could have specific names for each other. Hey, Bullard, you say it looked like the elephant sprayed the zebra. I did see that, but I thought the spray went in the opposite direction. Either way, it seemed like it was very effective to to push the zebras away. Oh, I hear that sound, the sound of tusks very softly colliding. Zygote, you say everyone is thirsty. Absolutely, and they're almost waiting in line for that pipe. So there's only one elephant who's really giving it a good go, and that's the one we can just see his trunk dipping down. Not the one on the left, but the one straight in front. You're going to see his trunk dip down, go over that pipe, and suck it all up. Kathy S., you wanted to know which one is wonton? Wonton looks like the one in the middle, the one that's blocking the view of the elephant that is drinking. He has very long tusks, and you can see that one kind of is longer than the other. But this one looks a little shorter than I expected. Maybe it's not him. We'll have to have a look when they all kind of stand out. Because for me, wonton is a really big elephant. But he also has these long tusks that go very, very close to the ground. And the one is slightly shorter than the other. Let's see. These honestly look like all the big boys in the area. Richard, you'd like to know, will the offspring of these males have tusks like them? That's an interesting question. And to be honest, I don't know the genetics of having long tusks. I don't know how much of a role environmental factors or nurture plays in these. Well, not nurture, but environmental factors. How much of a role it plays in having these long tusks. So there's a couple things to consider. I suspect it's completely genetic, but if it were completely genetic and common, we would see more of it. and we don't. So maybe it's a combination of things. It could even be resource availability at certain times of their development. But I'm going to have to do more research. Bridget, that is an excellent question. So now I'm really thinking about what are the genetics of these long tusks. And up here in East Africa, it looks as if there's a lot more tuskers than we see here in South Africa. And that in itself makes me feel like it's heavily genetic. I'm just thinking out loud now, trying to problem solve scientifically. But if it is genetic, it's not going to be as simple as a dominant or recessive gene. It's going to be a combination of things. It's kind of like height, or I'd imagine it to be kind of like height. So your height is not the result of one or two expressions of a gene coming from your parents and it being recessive or dominant. Oh. Someone very irritated. So your height is a combination of several genes that work together kind of like a puzzle. So if there's, say, 10 genes that are associated with your height or determine how tall you are, if 1 to 5 are on and 6 and 7 are off while 8, 9, and 10 are on, you're going to have a different height compared to if 1 to 2 were off and 3 to 10 were on. So it's kind of like a puzzle piece, or pieces. And I suspect that how individuals inherit tusk length, thickness, is variable like that too. Oh, hello, fluffy little foal. Yeah, this is a bit intense. Rolling Trouble, you say you heard one call out for Freddy. Definitely a Freddy in this gang. I think there's a Charles as well. Kathy, you also wanted to know how old Wonton is. He's 40-ish, which also made me reconsider who I pointed out as possibly Wonton earlier. Can you see that bull right at the back? Look how tall he is. That's the height I'd expect for a bull that's 40-ish. Hi Tris Visop, you say hi everyone. Well, it doesn't matter that you're late, we're glad that you're here. You wanted to know if I've noticed other elephants wiggling their trunks like Wonton has been doing recently. I have seen many elephants wiggling their trunks. I haven't seen Wonton specifically doing it lately. I also haven't been watching the cams because I've been away. But I have seen elephants wiggling the tip of their trunk. I think that's what you might be talking about. Kind of like a back and forth, slightly twisty, just moving around. Usually I see that in elephants when they're wanting to make a decision. Oh, look, there's that elephant with the injury on the trunk. Time for him to have a drink now. So Tris, I've seen it, and I'm sure Kirst can send me a clip of specifically what Wonton has been doing recently. But every time I've seen a kind of wiggling of the trunk, It's been some kind of indecisiveness. So if we look at the elephant on the right there, every now and then he's doing a slight wiggle of his trunk. It's not exactly what we're talking about, but it's similar. And now, of course, he's not doing it. Always makes me think like they're self-soothing when they put their trunks in their mouth like that. So the elephant directly in front of us, he looks like he's completely lost that tusk, his left tusk. I wonder if we could have a slightly closer look. Maybe we'll be able to see if it's completely out, as in the way one of our teeth might fall out of its socket, or whether it's actually been broken very close to the base. Shame this bull on the on the right is really unsure with what to do. Oh, there we go. We're slightly closer now. Now as he lifts his head up, oh, it looks like it's completely gone. You can also see it from the way that the skin hangs on that side. Now, just like our teeth, it's pretty much the same. So if the way that you would lose a tooth, it could happen from impact that loosens the roots of the tooth. Oh, there we have a good look. Completely out. Oh, and just look at that skin. Look at how it just kind of wiggles and wobbles there. I don't know, is this something that's happened recently? If anyone knows, please let me know, because this bull seems to be giving that site a little more attention than I would expect if it's been this way for a while. Doesn't look like he's in pain over it. Usually when they are, they'll... Oh, photobomb. This is the ultimate photobomb. Oh, yes. That was... that type of photobomb is illegal in some places, you know. Not on Twitter, unfortunately. So when the elephants are in pain over their tusks, you see them behave slightly differently. They give it a lot of attention. They keep touching the area. When they're at water holes, they'll blow water in that spot. They'll always be kind of handling it in some way. One time I saw an elephant that had a chip. I suppose it's more of a break on the tusk, but it wasn't very deep. But even like if we break our teeth, even if it's not terribly deep, see what he did there? That's what we see a lot more of. But it almost as if he's gotten used to it. But it's still not completely comfortable. So one time this elephant had a broken tusk, and I saw him put his mouth open onto a termite mound and just lie there, just leaning against the termite mound. Now, termite mounds are warm, and we all know, you know, when you have a toothache and you put like a warm press against that side, it brings relief. So they really give it a lot of attention. But this elephant bull is giving it a bit of attention now and then, but not as much as I would expect if it's fresh and painful. Oh, this is so nice. Now, other reasons that that tusk could fall out is infection. Like I say, just think about our own teeth. What are reasons that our own teeth might fall out? Infection's probably my bet. Tusks are used for pretty intense, forceful combat often. So I would imagine that they're built for that. But I mean, speaking of genetics, like we were with these tuskers, or not all of them are tuskers, but these big bulls being able to pass on the genes for these impressive tusks, perhaps he has weaker roots for his tusks. Now, that is going to affect the way that he can fight for females. But if we think about it in a broader sense, if he has a genetic predisposition that gives him weaker bases to his tusks, you wouldn't, well, I suppose, evolution and natural selection would put or unput pressure on him to mate in a way. He still seems to be quite dominant. Every time he moves, everyone else moves too. So I'm guessing that this tusk thing hasn't happened very, very much in the past. But it's going to be a problem for him to fight for females. Oh, that's a cute little Ellie butt right there. No tail. I really need to spend more time watching this Aldonio cam. I mean, we have now a big elephant bull with no left tusk. We have this guy that came in with the cutest little stubby tail. Some pretty obvious identifying features. We got the one on the right there on his left ear. It looks like he's got a very circular hole. Really nice identifying features. Yes, you say that Wonton has been doing this wiggly thing with his trunk from March this year. And you're wondering if it's not connected with his dental pain. He wiggles with 1/3 of his trunk and does trunk yoga almost constantly. You haven't seen him hanging his trunk on any of his tusks, but he touches them a lot. I really want to see a clip of this. Really, really want to see a clip of this. Because it sounds really interesting. And it sounds different to what I'm imagining. There we go. One tusk here is still seems to be really dominant. Now they're not having a whole lot of interaction, so it's hard to tell. But every time he moves or shows a bit of aggression, others react by pulling back. He could also be super irritable now from this injury, even if it didn't happen, a couple days ago. And maybe the others know that. And he can still do damage with the one tusk. Bridget McKinney, you call this cutesy elephant butt here, you call him No Tail? That's a very apt name. someone's having a pee nearby. It's so loud, and it goes on for such a long time. Hmm. This bachelor head is very interesting. Oh, that sucking sound you were hearing just now is the bull that's straight in front of us, next to the one with the one tusk, who's sucking on that pipe. Just after that sound. There we go, sucking again. I think if we can spend, I mean, it also, this is a static camera, so we can't follow them. But I think we would be able to know a lot about what's going on in this bachelor herd if we could follow them for a day. Bachelor herds are interesting because their dynamics can be so different to a breeding herd. A breeding herd of females and their offspring. And there's a matriarch, there might be a second in command, but nobody's trying to be dominant over the other. It's more about the matriarch is someone who's very experienced, which is important because she knows the roots, she knows where the good vegetation is at different times of the year, where the water is. She's a leader because of her experience. In a bachelor herd, there is going to be someone who's most dominant. There's going to be individuals that are coming that are new, that are completely submissive. But it's open. They can compete with each other. And the whole point of getting into a bachelor herd is so that they can compete with each other. But more for practice. Now, they don't stay like this constantly. They've come together today. Maybe they'll stay like this for a few more days. Then someone smells a female in estrus. And when he does, that's when these relationships that they form in this bachelor herd, the sparring that they do, the dominance in this herd, that's when that comes into play. Now, if he moves away over a huge home range that they have, and none of the individuals in the bachelor herd are there, and he was normally pretty submissive in the herd, he could mate with a female in estrus no problem. But if other individuals that were dominant in this bachelor herd are around, he knows his place immediately. So the way that they behave in the bachelor herd, the activities they get up to, help to mitigate any conflicts that they have once they find a female in estrus. Now, it doesn't always work like that. Still means they could fight. But it helps to kind of settle things before it gets to that stage. Because remember that when animals fight, they pose a risk to themselves as well. And that's why we see so many behaviors that are associated with displays to show off how dominant you are visually before having to actually make contact. Because once you make contact, someone's going to get hurt. And even if you are a dominant individual, that could be you too. So bachelor herds are super important in figuring those things out. But we've spoken about elephant intelligence, and it's not just about figuring things out. It's also about companionship, about learning. It's intriguing. I would love to follow this bachelor head around for a day. Anyway, everyone, that's our 45 minutes up. It's been an elephantastic Africam, as if you didn't know that was coming. The Africam show has been full of elephants, and you know that I don't like it any other way. Well, I do like it all other ways, but I never mind spending the day with some elephants. I think that we had some really great discussions. And Tris Visop, I will try and find a clip of what One Ton has been doing. It's really interesting. But for now, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure as usual, and I'll see you all on Thursday. Goodbye for now.